I happened to hear my wife sharing a light-hearted moment with her friends while enjoying some drinks. He lacks the awareness to understand that I have been unfaithful for years. They all erupted in laughter. I remained silent. However, when she arrived at my door in tears, she encountered an unexpected surprise. I, 33M, never anticipated finding myself in the position of posting on this sub, yet here I am. Prepare yourself, as this journey promises to be quite extraordinary. Let me present the matter at hand. Last weekend, I had planned an overnight trip with the guys to attend the game 2 states away. I have been meticulously planning this for several months. Unfortunately, Daryl's child fell ill at the last moment, necessitating a cancellation. Kong Saw, doi kaimwa chien zara nuve. I planned to surprise Heather, 32F, my wife of 8 years, by returning home early. Indeed, I understand the typical progression in such narratives, but I assure you, this is different. What transpired next was, in some ways, more distressing than discovering her with another man. Upon arriving at our driveway around 9 p.m., I observed multiple vehicles parked outside. I immediately identified Michelle's Subaru and Kathleen's Honda. Heather had indicated that she would be hosting the girls during my absence, so this aligns with her previous statement. I was just about to enter through the front door when I overheard them on our back deck via the side gate. They were being excessively loud. Wine consumed with exuberance. I intended to go around back to greet everyone when I heard my name being called. Thus, I took a moment to reflect. Refer to it as instinct, if you will. Griffin exhibits a remarkable quality. I am unable to comprehend. Heather was articulating her words with a slight slur. The young women all shared a light-hearted laugh. I am truly amazed at how long you have maintained this, Michelle's voice. He lacks the awareness to understand that I have been unfaithful for years. Heather announced it with great emphasis. They erupted in laughter. I came to a complete standstill. It feels as though my mind has momentarily ceased to function. Sutton has proven to be the most advantageous choice I have ever made. Heather proceeded with her remarks. Last week, while Griffin was working late, Sutton visited, and we engaged in an intimate moment on the couch where Griffin usually enjoys his cherished naps. Additional bursts of laughter. No, the revered nap couch. Kathleen let out a loud laugh, as if this was the most amusing thing she had ever encountered. It was impressive to witness Griffin's kindness the following day as he prepared breakfast for me. If he were aware of the activities his esteemed wife had engaged in the previous night. My stomach sank to the floor. I experienced a sudden and intense impact. The breakfast was exceptional. I prepared her preferred avocado toast along with the exquisite eggs she enjoys. Served her coffee in bed. I expressed my love for her. I lost track of time as I stood there, absorbing their exchange of stories. My entire body was trembling. I discovered that my business trips were her preferred occasions to invite Sutton over. That they had been in a relationship for over 3 years. She had been with him during the weekend of my dad's funeral, despite claiming she had food poisoning and couldn't attend. I chose not to confront them. Maintained composure. I returned to my car quietly. I drove to a nearby Target parking lot and remained there until I regained my composure. I must have appeared quite unhinged. A mature individual experiencing hyperventilation in his vehicle at 10 p.m. Veo Emotige Thursday Bay. Once I was able to gather my thoughts, I reached out to Daryl. Fortunately, his child was recovering well, and he was able to respond. My entire life has just collapsed. I provided him with all the necessary information. He advised against going home tonight. Feel free to stay here. We will resolve this matter efficiently. At Daryl's residence, I walked back and forth in the living room for hours as he researched divorce attorneys online. My mind continuously revisited various moments from the past few years that suddenly became clear. The trips taken by the girls resulted in a minimal collection of photographs upon their return. How she had begun placing her phone face down. The unexpected fees at hotels situated within a 30-mile radius of our residence. Throughout those evenings, she was diligently presenting properties to clients beyond standard business hours. I felt utterly foolish. At approximately 3 a.m., I received a message from Heather. Girls are present here. I trust we are enjoying our time with the gentleman. I appreciate you. I almost launched my phone at the wall. The boldness. Daryl stated, taking my phone, that it is essential to approach this matter with intelligence. Do not give her any hints. Not at this moment. The following morning, I maintained the facade that everything was as it should be. I informed her that I had stayed over at Daryl's due to having consumed too much alcohol. She acquired it entirely. She even had the audacity to express dissatisfaction about cleaning up after the girls while dealing with her hangover. During the following week, I entered a phase of careful observation and assessment. While she was taking a shower, I accessed her phone. Numerous communications with a Sutton client spanning several years. Hoa Don Coxan. Photos of an explicit nature. I captured screenshots of all relevant information and sent them to my email for future reference. I have reviewed our financial status. Numerous unfamiliar charges from restaurants I have never visited. Unseen lingerie. She had utilized our joint account to arrange a weekend getaway while I was attending my father's funeral. Moi fat hien du nu mot not dao dam veon gactois. 8 years of partnership. Every instance I stood up for her in front of my family when they remarked on her seeming self-absorbed. Every one of my aspirations and visions for our future. We are discussing the prospect of starting a family next year. All nonsense. I consulted with a divorce attorney during my lunch break. The most assertive option in the area as noted in Google reviews. She presented everything clearly for me. Ensure that all details are meticulously recorded. Ensure the safety of my financial resources. Get ready for the impending storm. Griffin, I observe this on a daily basis, she informed me. It is wise to hold off on addressing the situation with her at this time. The greater our level of preparation, the more advantageous your position will be. That evening, as I observed Heather enjoying a moment of laughter while engaged with her phone, likely communicating with him, a shift occurred within me. The discomfort persisted, yet it transformed into a chilling sensation coursing through me rather than a burning one. I came to the understanding that my desire extended beyond simply wanting to leave this marriage. I sought justice. Heather constructed her entire persona on the foundation of earning respect and admiration. Her standing in society. Her standing. Her portrayal as the ideal wife leading a flawless life, meticulously crafted for Instagram. She took great satisfaction in being the go-to person for advice among her peers. The guiding principles of her circle of friends. At this moment, I possessed undeniable evidence that everything had been fabricated. I began to take action. Moved 50% of our savings into a new account solely under my name. Documents of significant importance are secured with a password. Compiled a comprehensive inventory of all our assets. Documented all valuable items within the residence. All items recommended by my attorney. In the meantime, I maintained the appearance that everything was in order. Bid her farewell with a kiss each morning. Inquired about her day. I observed Netflix alongside her as she communicated with Sutton just beside me. Every day, I assumed the role of an unaware husband while systematically planning to dismantle her entire reality. After 2 weeks, I felt fully prepared. I ensured that all documentation was in order. Bao Cao Tai Chin. Proof of the relationship. A new apartment lease has been successfully signed and payment completed. Assistance from my family, who were deeply shocked by her actions. The most challenging aspect was maintaining my composure when she gazed into my eyes and deceived me. When she would express her affection by saying, "I love you," before bedtime. When she proposed that we begin our efforts to conceive next month. Every time I felt the urge to express my frustration directly, I maintained my composure. Because I possessed knowledge that she was unaware of. The woman who mocked my intelligence was unaware that I was on the verge of transforming into the most meticulous and relentless force she would ever encounter. I intended to follow all the procedures meticulously. Tom Tat Non Gone. Heard my wife discussing her long-term infidelity with friends. Rather than confronting her directly, I have dedicated weeks to collecting evidence and formulating a thorough divorce strategy. The countdown to the significant day has commenced. Cap not. First and foremost, I must express my astonishment, everyone. I was surprised by the unexpected popularity of my post. Thank you for your continued support. And the Reddit gold. What on earth? For those inquiring whether this is an exercise in creative writing, I can only express my desire for that to be the case. 3 weeks have passed since my last update. A significant amount has transpired. Prepare yourself. Recall the discussion we had regarding the strategy one outlined? Well, I've been carrying it out with utmost accuracy. The following day after my previous post, I observed something unusual. Heather began to exhibit an increased level of kindness. Preparing my preferred dinners. Commencing intimate relations. We should consider exploring houses in more desirable neighborhoods. Initially, I believed she had discovered that I was aware. However, I came to a realization. Feeling remorse. Typical signs of infidelity based on the numerous Reddit discussions I found myself engrossed in at 3 a.m. Allow me to clarify precisely what I have been engaged in. Provide financing for it. This was the top priority. I have transferred a portion of our savings to my personal account. Subsequently, I meticulously recorded each and every expense associated with her affair. The charges associated with the hotel? Chi Ti Tung MUC. The dinners she asserted were with clients were, in fact, with Sutton. Bang Tin. The intimate apparel she purchased for him. Captured images of the receipts. My attorney indicated that this might be viewed as the dissipation of marital assets. Essentially, she utilized our funds for her extramarital relationship. I have also suspended our joint credit cards. I informed her about the suspicious activity and that the bank would be issuing new ones. It is indeed accurate. This allowed me to take the necessary steps to remove her as an authorized user on my primary card. The expression on her face when her card was declined at Sephora? Invaluable. She contacted me expressing her frustration about how embarrassing the situation was. I feigned ignorance and suggested that the new cards might be postponed. Tai-san. I carefully relocated my essential belongings to my new apartment. Not everything simultaneously. Only invaluable items such as my father's watch, cherished family photographs, and essential documents. I accomplished this during her house showings. Also known as undermining Sutton. Moi kai toi di chien mot mon duare, twalithe the no bang mot ban saw retien hoke chi don john la sap zep lai moi Thursday de koikong nanare. The documentation set. This is where Daryl demonstrated exceptional skill. He assisted me in organizing everything into what we referred to as the nuclear file. Images of messages, photographs, hotel invoices, credit card statements, a detailed timeline of her relationship, and a USB drive containing recordings of her conversations with Sutton. Our jurisdiction operates under a one-party consent law. I created several copies. One for myself. One for my legal counsel. One intended for Sutton's wife. Indeed, I have located her. Laura. She appears to be a pleasant individual who was unaware of the situation, and one that would ultimately be directed to Heather's parents. The social perspective. This presented a challenge. I aimed to manage the narrative before Heather could craft an unfounded story that portrayed me negatively. I began engaging in discussions with our mutual friends about various topics related to men. There are no apparent issues. I recently observed that Heather appears to be somewhat distant these days, inquiring whether it is common for marriage to evoke feelings of loneliness at times. Instilled uncertainty while keeping my knowledge concealed. I captured screenshots of Heather's Instagram, where she depicted our marriage as relationship goals while she was engaged in infidelity. The level of hypocrisy was unprecedented. Then arrived D-Day. I selected it with careful consideration. The day of Heather's significant client appreciation event that she had meticulously planned for months. This is the account of the events that transpired. That morning, I conducted myself in a perfectly ordinary manner. Coffee has been prepared. Gave her a farewell kiss. I wished her the best of luck with her event. She departed exuding confidence in her high-end attire, which I now recognized I had essentially financed for her to impress other men. At precisely 10 a.m., I dispatched the evidence package to Sutton's wife through courier service. I provided my phone number in case she wished to have a conversation. By noon, chaos ensued. I was at my new apartment when the messages began to pour in. What is the reason for Sutton's wife contacting me? Have you had a conversation with her? Please answer your phone at your earliest convenience. I chose not to respond. Observe as Kakthong Deep Tich Lai Dan. Subsequently, I received a call from Laura, the wife of Sutton. We engaged in conversation for nearly an hour. She experienced profound sadness yet expressed appreciation for my honesty. It seems that Sutton had been manipulating her perceptions for years regarding her feelings of paranoia. She informed me that Sutton was currently making desperate efforts to salvage his marriage, which involved completely sacrificing Heather. By 2 p.m., Heather's client event was not going as planned. She needed to depart ahead of schedule due to the urgent situation. She continued to call me without interruption. At 3 p.m., I dispatched a concise and informative email to her parents. Present only the timeline and essential evidence, devoid of any emotional language. I have always held them in high regard, and they are entitled to understand the true nature of their daughter. I clarified that my intention was not to cause any harm, but I could not allow Heather to dictate the narrative. At 6 p.m., I was seated composedly in our living room when Heather arrived home. Her mascara was smudged, and she appeared to have aged significantly in just one day. She began with frustration. How could I possibly inform Laura? How could I act in such a disloyal manner towards her? She swiftly transitioned to negotiation upon noticing my lack of response. She explored all possible options. Emotions run high, with cries of anguish and allure, followed by further sorrow. I remained composed and stated that we both understand the situation clearly. Subsequently, I presented her with the divorce papers that my attorney had meticulously prepared. The color faded from her face as she comprehended that this was not an impulsive response, but rather a carefully orchestrated plan I had been devising for weeks while lying beside her each night. It was at that moment she observed that several of my belongings were absent. I informed her that I would be residing in a different location and that she had 3 days to resolve her living situation before I would notify our landlord regarding the violation of our lease agreement. We included a morality clause, which my lawyer deemed beneficial. The following days proved to be quite engaging. She oscillated between making threats, asserting that I would never escape the consequences, pleading for resolution, insisting it was merely a physical matter, professing her unwavering love for me, and attempting to portray herself as the victim, claiming loneliness and accusing me of working too much. At the same time, her social circle was disintegrating. Michelle and Kathleen distanced themselves from her as soon as they understood that their involvement could potentially be exposed. Her parents reached out to her, resulting in a conversation that fell short of expectations. The words of her mother when she reached out to express her apologies to me. Va Sutton T saw. That individual was actively managing the situation with his wife, asserting that Heather was fixated on him and would not cease her attempts to contact him. The financial situation became starkly clear to her when she discovered that half of our savings had been legally transferred to my account. Her access to our shared credit cards has been revoked. She was unable to cover the rent independently. The mishap at her event likely resulted in the loss of clients, marking a significant setback. She learned from mutual acquaintances that her actions are widely known. It wasn't due to my direct communication, but rather because Sutton's wife shared the information with her friends, who subsequently relayed it to others. The social circle she had meticulously constructed around her flawless image was disintegrating. She arrived at my new apartment last night. It appears she obtained my address, likely through her acquaintance employed at the leasing office in the area. She was weeping on my doorstep, makeup smudging, appearing utterly shattered. For a brief moment, I nearly experienced a sense of sympathy for her. Nearly. I allowed her to enter as my neighbors were beginning to observe, and I prefer to avoid any unnecessary disruptions. She promptly began to explain the significant error she had made. She would go to great lengths to resolve the issue. She was astonished that she had jeopardized our marriage for someone like Sutton. I glanced at her and remarked, "Do you recall when you mentioned to your friends that I was too foolish to see that you were being unfaithful? Well, what a revelation!" The expression on her face when she understood that I had overheard everything that night. It is beyond description. Utter astonishment. Then a sense of dread. That is regrettable. She began to express that her intentions were not as they seemed. She was intoxicated. It was merely a discussion. Chuyen Engip va hu qua. I interrupted her and instructed her to take a seat as I had something important to present to her. When Heather arrived at my door in tears, she encountered an unexpected surprise. A thorough analysis of her updated financial situation. I had spreadsheets, projections, and a comprehensive accounting of the challenges she would face following this divorce. Tom tat non gone. I implemented my plan flawlessly. Revealed the wife's infidelity to all relevant parties. I ensured my financial stability while observing her world unravel before my eyes. She approached seeking forgiveness, but was met with a stark financial reality instead. Kap not koi kung. It has been 6 months since my previous update. Firstly, I appreciate all the direct messages inquiring about my well-being. I required some time to thoroughly evaluate everything before presenting the conclusion to this entire situation. Are you familiar with the YouTube videos that showcase the demolition of old buildings? It begins with minor strategic disruptions before the entire framework implodes inward. That summarizes the events that unfolded in my ex-wife's life. I was positioned right at the forefront. The morning following Heather's emotional visit to my apartment, I awoke with an unusual sense of tranquility. After months, I finally experienced a night of uninterrupted sleep, free from the anxiety that usually wakes me at 3 a.m. I prepared a cup of coffee, browsed through Reddit, and noticed that I hadn't promptly checked my phone for any messages from her. Advancement. Meanwhile, Heather was navigating what my therapist later referred to as the culture of consequences. Upon departing from my apartment, she seemingly headed directly to Michelle's residence, anticipating that her best friend would welcome her in. Our mutual friend Jake informed me that Michelle seemed to be avoiding contact, as her car was in the driveway and the lights were on, yet she acted as if she were not at home. That is an exemplary friendship. What developments have occurred since that time? Allow me to clarify the details. The dissolution of marriage proceedings. The legal process proceeded with remarkable efficiency. My lawyer provided exceptional value for the investment made. During mediation, Heather asserted that she was entitled to half of everything, emphasizing that one mistake should not overshadow 8 years of marriage. The mediator, an experienced woman with a firm approach, simply looked at her and inquired whether 3 years of documented infidelity could be considered a single mistake. When Heather recognized that her typical emotional approach was ineffective, she opted for a more assertive strategy involving threats. She claimed she would tarnish my reputation, accuse me of abuse, which I did not commit, and ensure the divorce process was as difficult as it could be. My attorney discreetly placed the photographic evidence of her with Sutton on the table and reminded her that Maryland law allows for adultery to influence alimony determinations. The expression on Heather's face was invaluable, reminiscent of the moment one comprehends the gravity of bringing a knife to a nuclear conflict. We reached an agreement 2 weeks later. I retained my retirement accounts and the majority of our assets. She had sufficient resources to begin anew, yet it fell short of the lifestyle she was used to. The judge informed her that she was in a fortunate position, considering the circumstances. The economic repercussions. This segment was challenging to observe, even for me. Heather relocated to her parents' residence within their retirement community. At 32, transitioning from our upscale apartment to a guest room adorned with floral wallpaper and a twin bed that had been in her possession since high school. She made an effort to maintain a polished image on Instagram for some time. A plethora of enigmatic quotes regarding personal development and faith in the process, accompanied by calculated perspectives that concealed her current residence in her childhood bedroom. However, social media has become remarkably transparent in recent times. Individuals observe when you shift from sharing fresh content to posting throwback moments. Her financial situation deteriorated significantly after she lost her job. Not directly related to the affair. Her supervisor was indifferent to her personal circumstances, focusing instead on her frequent absences and tardiness. It appears to be a case of depression. I must admit that I found that part unclear. The societal consequences. This was the most captivating aspect to observe as it developed. Our social circle experienced unexpected fractures. Daryl, without a doubt. Jake and his wife, along with the majority of my colleagues, and, interestingly, Heather's cousin Tina, who seemingly always recognized Heather's self-centered nature. At first, it was solely her parents, yet even they seemed to maintain a certain distance, as suggested by family rumors. She subsequently re-established contact with Kathleen, who had experienced her own divorce and was navigating a phase of disillusionment with men. Many individuals tend to create a separation from both parties involved. It is understandable. No one wishes to be entangled in the complexities of divorce proceedings. The most unusual development was Michelle. After initially not responding to Heather, she contacted me on Facebook to inquire about my well-being and suggested meeting for coffee sometime. I respectfully declined. The manner in which she would abandon ship at the first sign of Heather's difficulties struck me as peculiar. The situation regarding Sutton. Laura, the spouse of Sutton, and I maintained our communication. Not in a romantic context. We were merely two individuals navigating through comparable betrayals. We would meet for lunch every few weeks to exchange updates. Sutton seemingly employed reconciliation strategies reminiscent of a poorly executed romantic comedy, positioning himself outside their residence with a boombox, dispatching extravagant floral arrangements to her office, and even attempting to enlist their pastor's assistance. None of it was effective. 3 weeks following D-Day, Laura initiated divorce proceedings and relocated to her sister's residence in Pennsylvania. Recently, I learned that she is in a relationship with a kindergarten teacher who also coaches Little League during the weekends. That's commendable for her. Sutton attempted to contact me, sending an extensive message regarding our shared experiences as victims and detailing how Heather pursued him with intensity. I just replied with a response that seemed both dismissive and entirely sufficient, reflecting my personal journey. This section presents a greater challenge to articulate. During the initial month following my relocation, I essentially withdrew from social interactions. Completed work tasks, returned home, placed an order through DoorDash, enjoyed the latest offerings on Netflix, and then rested. Kindly repeat. My apartment resembled a college dorm with a mattress placed directly on the floor. 1 pot, 2 plates, minimalistic approach. Daryl has successfully organized an intervention. Arrived one Saturday morning with bagels and encouraged me to engage in a conversation about my feelings. I typically don't show much emotion, but that day was particularly challenging. I shared with him thoughts I had not yet acknowledged within myself. Underneath the anger, there was simply sadness. Regretful about the time that has been lost. Disappointed with the future I envisioned. It is disheartening to realize that someone I placed my full trust in could betray me with such ease. Subsequently, I commenced therapy. I discovered this professional via BetterHelp, who focuses on betrayal trauma. He refrained from advocating for reconciliation or forgiveness or any of those cliched sentiments. Provided me with effective tools to analyze the situation and progress ahead. Progress has been made through incremental actions. Acquired a suitable bed frame. Participated in a local soccer league. Accepted invitations to social events rather than providing excuses. Resumed cooking instead of relying on frozen pizzas and protein shakes. 2 months ago, I embarked on my first date following the divorce. Just a casual coffee meeting with a woman I connected with through the hiking group I joined. It was quite uncomfortable. I had lost the ability to engage in a typical conversation with someone unfamiliar. However, it marked the beginning. The ultimate showdown. Last week, an unforeseen event occurred. I visited Home Depot to purchase paint for my new residence. Ultimately, I grew weary of gazing at plain white walls. When I accidentally collided carts with Heather. She appeared distinct. Hair trimmed, attire more subdued. For a brief moment, neither of us was certain how to proceed. She inquired if we could have a brief discussion. Despite my reservations, I agreed. We positioned ourselves on a bench outdoors, each gripping our Home Depot bags as if they were protective shields. She began with a sincere and heartfelt apology. Take responsibility and own your actions. She recognized the pain she had caused me and shared her efforts to reflect on her actions and their underlying reasons. I will be honest. A portion of me anticipated the emotional manipulation, the tears, and the efforts to reconcile. However, it did not arrive. She simply wished to convey her apologies to me. She was also undergoing therapy. She expressed her hope that I was doing well. She informed me of her decision to relocate to Chicago for a new beginning. I had an interview scheduled and was residing with a college friend until she secured her own accommodation. The most unusual aspect? I came to the understanding that I experienced no emotions. Not frustration. Not discomfort. There was a lack of fulfillment regarding the outcome. Simply, Kong Ko Gi. It felt akin to observing the conclusion of a series that had lost my interest midway. Our farewell was somewhat uncomfortable. No embrace. A simple acknowledgement. As she walked away, she turned back and made a remark that resonated with me. I understand that it may not hold significance at this point, but my feelings for you were genuine. I simply lacked the understanding of how to express love effectively. Incorporating myself. I stood there observing her departure, reflecting on how 6 months prior, that encounter would have deeply affected me once more. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon task that unexpectedly led to a meeting with someone from my past. My current location is progressing nicely as I settle into my new place. While it may be smaller than the apartment we shared, it is now my own space. Maintain a neutral stance. No memories hidden in the shadows. A space that is gradually evolving into a place of comfort and belonging. The work is satisfactory. Friendships are valuable. I am doing well. Generally speaking, that is the case. There are still instances when a song plays or I encounter something that brings her to mind, and it evokes a sharp feeling. However, those moments are becoming increasingly rare. Yesterday, I removed all the evidence files from my computer. I have backups stored on a drive secured in my safe, just in case, but I no longer require those screenshots and timelines cluttering my digital space. It carried a certain significance. Similar to clearing browser cache, I've embarked on a new chapter in my life by starting to date someone new. Proceeding with caution. She is aware of the fundamental aspects of the situation, but lacks knowledge of the more unpleasant specifics. She demonstrates understanding towards my trust issues and respects my need for space without pressure. While it may be premature to determine the outcome, it is encouraging to sense that potential once more. I received an update about Heather from her mother, who continues to send me birthday cards, which is quite unusual. It seems that Heather is doing well in Chicago. Secured the position. Secured an apartment. Establishing new connections. A portion of me feels a sincere sense of satisfaction. Not due to any particular goodwill towards her, but because it signifies the definitive conclusion of this chapter for both of us. The woman who mocked my inability to recognize her betrayal ultimately faced the most profound lesson of all. Actions lead to outcomes. Reputations are cultivated over years, yet can be shattered in an instant. Once trust is compromised, certain aspects may remain irreparable. And what about me? I discovered my strength exceeds my previous understanding. Starting over is not synonymous with giving up, and the most effective form of revenge is not about ruining someone else's life. It's about reconstructing your own, enhanced beyond previous standards. Divorce has been finalized, my ex-wife has relocated across the country, and I am gradually rebuilding my life. The thorough disassembly of her life occurred primarily due to natural repercussions, and my personal transformation remains an ongoing endeavor.